Hi. Do you remember how you felt on that day? Do you remember where you were in 2001? Because I remember that day very well. It was the day I got my first period. And I do remember that day very well because I was so excited about it. I was so excited I was finally becoming a real woman, right? And I was so excited I wanted to tell my mom about it, and I was running down the stairs of our house to tell her. And while I was running, I was wondering, what would she say? How would she react? Was it like a big gift that was given to me now? And I was coming to her, and I told her, and she was looking at me and said, "You'll have it every month. Here's a pad." And I was like, wait. This wasn't the reaction I was hoping for. This doesn't seem like a big gift. This rather seems like a curse. So 50% of the world's population menstruates. And if you add up the days that we menstruate in total, it will be like 6 years almost of our lives. 6 years of bleeding through, right? So this is quite a big amount of time in our lives, right? So menstruation plays a really big role in our lives. And not all women menstruate, and not everyone who menstruates is a woman, but most of us are. And 50% of the population, the other 50%, they don't menstruate, and they don't have any contact to menstruation. They don't have anything to do with it. But I was thinking, why not end with that today? So if you're a guy watching this now and thinking, why the hell? Why? Why do I have to start thinking about menstruation? I am telling you, you're most likely sharing an office at least, or maybe even a flat, a bed, your life. Maybe you're sharing your visions with someone who bleeds. And I was thinking, this makes you kind of a co-menstruator. So since we realize now that we are all in this together, right? Let's deal with it together. So that's why I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you today, 6 things men need to know about periods. But I know you're very curious about hearing the first thing you need to know, but let me quickly go back to my 13-year-old self, because I remember, although my mother was not very enthusiastic about me getting my period, periods were extremely cool when I was a teenager. It was actually really cool to have one. We pretended to have them all the time. It's like, it was the best excuse not to take part in the sports classes, but not only that, we had a feeling that it made us feel strong, and it made us feel proud, because we became all the way from being a girl to becoming a woman, and it made us feel like being a part of a really special, really cool gang. And that's how we felt about it. And 16 years later, at the age of 29, I remembered how I was sitting at my office desk, and I had really menstrual cramps from hell. It was day 1 of my period, and I had thrown in painkillers in the morning, but it was one of the days where the painkillers didn't really work. So I had a very important presentation in the afternoon, but I then went to my boss and said, hey, you know, I'm really not feeling very well. I'm on my period. Can you take over the presentation in the afternoon? And he said, of course, no problem. Obviously, I didn't say that. I mean, who would say that? Who would say that? Of course, I went to him and said, you know, I have a really bad headache. It feels like my forehead is exploding. I can't do the presentation. Can you please take over this time? And he said, of course, yeah. And I walked back to my office desk, and I was wondering, why did that happen? Why was I lying about my period? What how did I come the way from pretending to have my period all the time when I was a teenager, because it was that cool, to denying I had my period and lying about it? What happened in these 16 years? What did society actually do to me that I was now lying about my period? So I was feeling really curious about the fact that I just lied about my period, and I did what you usually do when you get curious about something and you want to change something. I quit my corporate job to find about menstruation. And the only thing I needed was someone to actually pay me while I was doing research on menstruation, understanding what is going wrong in the society. So I found these two guys, Philipp and Waldemar, founders of a fair and sustainable startup in Berlin, Einhorn. And I told them, guys, I know you're selling vegan condoms right now, but there's something else below the waistline going on, and it's really interesting. It's about blood and pain and taboos. And they were like, wow, this sounds amazing, let's do it. So I joined them, and we started what we call the period revolution. And I was starting my research. And the first thing that came into my mind while researching the topic of menstruation was, you all know this ad for the menstrual pads, where they pour this liquid into the pad to show how it will beautifully take up all the blood. So that leads us to the number one thing men have to know about periods. It's not blue. So, what is this? Why are they pouring blue liquid on the pad? I mean, imagine a kid watching an ad for a plaster, someone having a scratch, and then there's like a blue crust on it. Why do we do that? I mean, how should we perceive our period as something very normal when we don't even dare to show its real color on TV? So I was really wondering about that. Actually, menstrual blood is red. It is really red. Actually, it's quite viscous because it contains some uterine lining that comes with it. And stem cell researchers actually love it because it's the most nutrient blood you can get in your whole body. It's the best blood. They use it to make myocardial cells out of it because it's the best blood you can get. The second thing you have to know about periods, it's a supernormal superpower. So actually the period or the menstrual cycle is all about putting the best circumstances to grow new life in our bodies. And I mean, that's great, right? The uterus is building up additional lining throughout the circle for an egg to potentially settle in a very rich and nice and cozy lining. And if no egg does, the menstruation happens, the additional lining is shed out during the menstruation. So it's actually, having your period means that your reproductive system is working really well. So it's a great thing. So we see that what happens during menstruation is not weird at all. The only thing that's weird is the way we deal with it, the way we whisper about it, the way men don't get in any contact with menstruation. And to understand why we deal with it in a very weird way, we have to go way back to the Stone Age. Because in the Stone Age, carvings, sculptures that have been found from the Stone Age, they suggested that menstruation back in the Stone Age, menstrual blood was something really magical. It was something precious. It was very powerful. And women, they bled once per month without even dying. They were freaking goddesses. But guess who didn't really like the idea of women being goddesses with superpowers? The church. The party was over when the church came into the game. So the church had found a perfect reason in menstruation to state that women are inferior to men. And they wrote something really interesting in a very famous book we all know, called the Bible. This is the Old Testament, and it says when a woman has a discharge and the discharge in her body is blood, she's impure. So all the religions actually agreed. Also, if you look in Hinduism, for example, you will also find menstruation is impure. So that was a really smart thing. On the 8th day, actually, the woman who menstruates, she shall bring 2 pigeons to the priest to excuse herself in front of God for having blood. So we still take this burden with us, and I found a menstruating goddess from India. They actually have a menstruating goddess. I couldn't take the picture because I didn't have the rights to show it here, but I quickly drew it for you. You should Google her. You should really Google her. She looks a bit different, but she's a squatting goddess of menstruation. But even in front of her temple, there's a sign saying, entrance to menstruating woman is strictly forbidden. So we wanted to know how we deal with menstruation in Germany, right? This is a long time ago, the Bible, this is India, this is far away. How do we in Germany deal with menstruation? So we put together 69 questions about menstruation and put it on Facebook, and it actually went viral, which I didn't even know was still possible. And we figured out that there's no taboo at all in Germany. So people talk about periods all the time, it's a totally normal thing. Partners talk to each other, it's not a thing at all. Sadly, that was not what we found out. We got 20,000 people who took part in our survey, and we found menstruation is still one of the biggest taboos in our society, even in Germany in 2018. So there's still a lot of shaming and a lot of not talking about things, also a lot of missing knowledge about what really happens in the body. And I will tell you the 2 main things that we found out. First of all, periods are painful. Not for all of us, but for some of us, or let's say most of us. They are very painful. Actually, they are very, 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 very painful. When we ask which struggles are you experiencing during a period, we see that the classic is the menstrual cramp. 70% say they have menstrual cramps, and scientists just compared the intensity of a menstrual cramp with a heart attack. Imagine you would see someone with a heart attack and run to him with a hot water bottle and tell them to keep themselves together, right? I mean, who would do that? Second problem is we don't talk about it. So every second woman thinks that her partner is disgusted by the menstrual blood. And that is a very uneasy fit with the number 1 thing people during their periods miss, which is sex. So we all know, hopefully, that orgasms during menstruation can release the menstrual cramps. So it would be a very good idea to talk with your partner about what you really like and what you don't really like. So we need to talk, because if we don't talk, we'll never find out. 60% of the people we asked wished for more understanding from their partners. And we were thinking, how can they understand something they are not experiencing themselves? And then we asked our friend Jan Becker, he's a mentalist, and we asked him, can you hypnotize guys into thinking they're on their period? So we collected from our Instagram period community, we collected a lot of very pictorial descriptions of how they feel their pain. And we casted 20 very brave guys in our Berlin backyard. And that's what happened.
Schau in deine Hand auf nur einen Punkt und du spürst, wie die Hand näher kommt, und schlaf. Und jetzt spürst du einen leichten Schmerz in deinem Unterleib, ein leichtes Ziehen, das immer stärker wird. Als ob 2 Hände von hinten durch deinen Rücken in deinen Unterleib greifen und die Gedärme in dir die Organe zusammendrücken. Wie ein Handrührgerät, das all deine Organe in dir durcheinander wirbelt. Wie 2 Messer, die von rechts und links in deinen Bauch langsam hineingeschoben werden. Immer stärker wird dieser Schmerz. Diese Messer in dir, dieses Handrührgerät, diese Einsamkeit. Es wird dir heiß. Versuch den Schmerz wegzuatmen und es gelingt dir nicht.
Wie war das für dich?
Heavy.
Was würdest du den Frauen oder den Menstruierenden in deinem Umfeld mitgeben nach deiner Erfahrung?
Respekt.
Meinen imaginären Hut ziehen. Vor euch allen 3,5 Milliarden.
So, ladies and gents, we really have to unfuck menstruation. We have to break this taboo that is still there together. And we have to learn about it. We have to understand what really happens in the body. We have to invest in science so that menstrual cramps can be treated as well as heart attacks. And we must provide education to remove this stigma associated with this very normal process in our body. And of course, we have to talk about it. We have to have more empathy in the partnership and also in the workplace for menstruating people. And periods need to be normalized, and share your experiences with each other. Talk to your partners, talk to your colleagues, talk to your sons, talk to your daughters. Because if they perceive their period, this very normal but very beautiful process, as a curse or as a gift, that's something that you decide. Thank you.